let's wrap up 2022 and talk about the very best comic books of the year. I think there's going to be some contention at the top of the charts. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to fit everything I love this year into the list. Specifically, I do want to give a shout out to Ablaze. Their Sumerian series, Life Zero, are both absolutely phenomenal, but they are not original materials. They're actually comic books created in Europe that have been translated and republished in the US, so I decided I would leave those off the list. I love Crimson Cage from AWA Studios, but there was a better wrestling comic book this year that I had to put on the list, and I can't have the entire list filled with wrestling comics. Also, Moon Knight, in my opinion, is the best ongoing series at Marvel, but there were two miniseries from Marvel that I just thought were better than Moon Knight. But Moon Knight has been absolutely fantastic, especially the art in that series. Also, Starhenge from Liam Sharp, which I think is really great and is going to read even better in trades. Just barely misses the list. There was another writer-artist that I thought pulled out something that was just a little bit better this year. I love the Saturday Morning Adventure series from IDW, both G.I. Joe and TMNT. If you enjoy those cartoons, you need to be reading those comic books because they're absolutely great. Also, Barbaric Axe to Grind, I was really looking forward to. In fact, I think it delivered on most of the promise of the series, but it just couldn't quite sneak into the top 10. I found some comic books that I just liked a little bit more. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we have a tie between E-RATIC, Recharged, and Rogue Sun, both from Image Comics. Carrie Andrews illustrating and writing E-RATIC, Ryan Parrott writing, Abel illustrating Rogue Sun. I kind of consider these very similar comic books. They're takes on classic Spider-Man when he was a teenager. E-RATIC is a much more joy-filled, exciting, vibrant version of the character. The art and the colors pop, and it's certainly made for a younger audience. Rogue Sun looks at a little bit of the darker nature of being a teenage superhero, going through all these things and not having the perfect family life. But I love both the series so much. I cannot believe that Marvel and DC are not backing the Brinks truck up to Ryan Parrott after what he's done on Rogue Sun and Power Rangers, also the TMNT Power Rangers crossover, which was also very successful. These are really, really talented people here. They have huge futures, and if you love Spider-Man, we're not getting good Spider-Man now. If you like Teenage Spider-Man, Miles Morales had a decent opening, but we haven't seen a good version of that character for long. Go read E-RATIC and go read Rogue Sun. You are absolutely going to love these. They are great takes on that version of a superhero. Coming in at number 9, Action Comics, the WARWORLD saga from Philip Kennedy Johnson with Miguel Mendoza and Ricardo Federici on art. This story did go on a little bit too long. If they had condensed it about 3 or 4 issues, it would probably be in the top 5. But Action Comics WARWORLD saga is absolutely brilliant. And it really shows you the quality of the writer that Philip Kennedy Johnson is. He was able to take Grant Morrison's chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. Grant Morrison's Superman and the Authority wasn't all that compelling to me. In fact, I don't think it was very good. Philip Kennedy Johnson was able to go in there, take the parts of that were going to work because Superman couldn't be on Earth to make way for John Kent to be Superman, put him on WARWORLD, and end up doing an epic saga. If you like great art, if you like an interesting take on Superman, depowered, still showing that he's a badass character and a fighter through and through, you are going to like this comic book. I think Philip Kennedy Johnson has a bright future. I think he's a little bit more in his element doing fantasy stories, and I think that's why this works out better than some of his other work. But if you've been waiting for some good Superman, it was actually there all along. WARWORLD saga lasted pretty much the entire year. It was absolutely fantastic. A series I was really looking forward to, a sequel in 2022, was The Killlock, The Artisan Rape from Livio Ramondelli, coming in at number 8 for me. Not quite as spectacular as the original series, but really good stuff here. Wonderfully illustrated. You can tell Livio Ramondelli has a passion for drawing robots. He brings these robot characters in this robot universe to life, does a really great job with that. The thing that stands out for this one, to me, are the 2 new characters that he introduces here. It's really all about friendship. 2 friends that have been together for a long time. One of them took one of them in when they were very young, showed them the ropes, brought them up into being like a bounty hunter. And as they've gotten older, the younger one has ascended to being one of the best bounty hunters in the world. And the one that took him in, the older robot, he's actually malfunctioning. He's kind of got robot Alzheimer's at this point, and the characters never lose faith in each other. They always stick up for each other. I really like the message in this. He was able to take what I thought you really couldn't make a sequel for in The Killlock. He did wrap that stuff up. He expanded the world that we are living in and exploring in The Killlock. And he added these 2 amazing characters in a wonderful relationship that was a bedrock of the series. If you haven't read The Killlock and the sequel, definitely go check that one out. Coming in at number 8, Strange Academy Finals from Marvel Comics. Scotty Young, Humberto Ramos doing the work of their careers, in my opinion. Scotty Young understands actually how to write young, compelling characters and never goes out of his way to make them off-putting or lame as hell. They go out there and they make a lot of mistakes. Yes, they are young heroes, but they're also likable. They also stick up for each other. They're like a little family there. And when we get the cameos from the established Marvel stars, they never really overtake the comic book series. They're just there to provide a helping hand, perhaps save the day here or there. But for the most part, you get to see these wonderful young heroes in the making, Humberto Ramos illustrating, and it looks absolutely wonderful. There are very few comic books from Marvel and DC you can read with your kids these days. Strange Academy Finals is absolutely one of them. If you have not read this with your kids, this is a follow-on series. I believe there's 18 issues of Strange Academy to be explored, and then you get to this one as it wraps it up. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. If you like all ages comic books, if you want a new flavor of Marvel comics with some heroes that maybe feel familiar but are absolutely different, go check this one out. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. I really enjoyed it in 2022. Also from Marvel Comics, coming in at number 6, the highest ranked Marvel series on the list, Maestro, World War M, Peter David, Herman Peralta. My thoughts and prayers obviously are going out to Peter David and his family right now as he's having some medical emergencies, but my goodness, did this man put together a wonderful trilogy miniseries with Maestro. When they announced they were going to be doing some Maestro work, I was like, I don't get why they're doing this. Yes, I like the brief appearance of this version of Hulk from decades back, but I didn't really think there was anything there to mind. Once we get into here and we get to this final chapter, there's so much stuff that Peter David's doing here. You can see that this man gets the Marvel Comics universe probably better than any other writer that they have right now. There's a reason that this is the best comic book they produced all year. Herman Peralta does more than hold his own on this one. It looks absolutely brilliant until the final issue when we get a new artist, and it doesn't look quite as good. But if you haven't been reading this Maestro series, I don't know what else to tell you. If you like Hulk, if you like alternate futures from the Marvel Comics universe and heroes, if you like cool cameos and seeing where some of these heroes end up in the future and what may lie ahead for them, this is the series from you. This is basically a reprieve from in-continuity Marvel Comics. If you can't take in-continuity Marvel right now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just not real good right now. You can go over to these 90s throwback miniseries from Peter David and others, including Chris Claremont, J.M. DeMatteis, and others are all kind of doing this stuff, and they're absolutely brilliant. And this is the best one that they did, the best comic book Marvel produced all year, in my opinion. Coming in at number 5, The Flash, Jeremy Adams, Fernando Pasarin. Everything with DC Comics these days is so dark, it's so gloom, it's so gritty, it's dirty, it's kind of gross. It doesn't feel like DC Comics anymore. Certainly, Batman has kind of always been like that, but the main crux of the DC Comics universe has always been a hopeful universe. It's kind of been the antithesis of the Marvel Comics universe. For some reason, following the Christopher Nolan trilogy of Batman movies, everything at DC has to be dark and gloomy and disgusting now. Other than The Flash from Jeremy Adams, rehabilitating the Wally West character, getting the entire family back together. He finally has his wife back with him. He's got his kids back with him. They brought in the entire Flash family. They brought in all the rogues, and he's telling really fun, zany adventures. In homage to DC's Golden and Silver Age, the stories are a little bit more serious, but they are lighthearted, which is something I think we need in the DC Comics universe. Wally West was treated so poorly for 2 years. Finally, somebody that likes Wally West, somebody that loves Wally West, loves Jai and Iris and all the other parts of the Wally West family, comes onto the book and does everything that he can to fix the character and fix all the wrongs that have been done to Wally West as the Flash. Unfortunately, it's not selling nearly as well as it should be. This should be a top 5 or 10 selling comic book in the industry just based on the quality of the work Jeremy Adams and Fernando Pasarin are putting out there. If you like The Flash, if you like Wally West, if you've been done dirty by DC Comics and said, I can't go back, you can go back. Trust me. You can trust Jeremy Adams with this character. He's doing great work, and you're really missing out. Coming in at number 4, King of Spies from Image Comics, Mark Millar, Matteo Scalera. We haven't had a really cool spy comic book in many years now. In fact, we haven't had a really good James Bond story in probably a decade at this point. And King of Spies is easily the best Bond story you could possibly imagine. Now, of course, it isn't James Bond. This is an original character, but you can see Mark Millar is channeling his inner Pierce Brosnan, James Bond to flesh out this character. We get the end of this spy's life. He's wanting to right the wrongs that he's made in his life while he was being played as a pawn for the man for decades upon decades in the Queen's service. Really exhilarating stuff here. It is Mark Millar, so he does go over the line a little bit. It is gruesome, it is gory, and sexual and all that kind of stuff. I'm surprised it's not in my top 3. I thought it would be. There are a couple of other series that I thought were just a kind of hairs better than King of Spies by Mark Millar, but this thing is absolutely brilliant. If you like spy comic books, if you like Mark Millar, you need to support this book. Hopefully, my fingers are crossed, they're able to bring back Pierce Brosnan, cast him as the main character in King of Spies, and make it into a Netflix miniseries or a movie. I really hope that's what happens. We finally get to see this live action because it will absolutely sing there as well. This thing is violent and brutal and beautiful. The Matteo Scalera art is absolutely, you know what I'm saying? It is on the nose, perfect. Coming in at number 3, just edging out King of Spies, in my opinion, from Mad Cave Studios, Nottingham, the second volume of the series from David Hazan, Shane Connery-Volk. Everybody nowadays wants to take established characters and deconstruct them for a modern audience, right? What David Hazan and Shane Connery-Volk do here with Nottingham, they're going back, but they're not deconstructing Robin Hood. They're not deconstructing the Sheriff of Nottingham or any of the stories. They're just looking at the story through a new lens and telling new adventures where different things happen based on the way that the characters are interacting nowadays. They're not tearing the characters down and showing you why they hated the original Robin Hood stories. They're lifting the characters up and they're showing you why they loved Robin Hood so much. That's how you get great stuff like Nottingham. And this sequel, shockingly, and I didn't think it was possible, is better than the first volume. And I thought the first volume was very, very good. The second volume is brilliant. The art from Shane Connery-Volk is some of the best art that you're going to see in comic books. He's got a distinct style, but he makes everything look cool. Anytime there's action, it looks badass. And that's what you want from good comic books. This is visual storytelling at its finest. If you like Robin Hood and you haven't discovered Nottingham, go back to the beginning, get the first volume, get yourself in the second volume, and you're going to be reading what I consider the third best comic book released in 2022. I hope we get more Nottingham in the future. David Hazan, tip of the cap to you, sir. Shane Connery-Volk, tip of the cap to you, sir. You've taken something that I didn't know needed to be recontextualized and gave us great new Robin Hood stories. Coming in at number 2, this was so hard, deciding between Batman, Superman, World's Finest, and Do a Powerbomb. I've decided Do a Powerbomb from Image Comics and Daniel Warren Johnson is my second favorite comic book of 2022. It's absolutely brilliant in every way conceivable. I love pro wrestling, I love comic books, and I really like Daniel Warren Johnson as a visual storyteller and a writer. I basically get everything that I want in one package, and it's delivered so magnificently. I didn't think there would be a better wrestling-based comic book than Crimson Cage in 2022. I just didn't think it was possible. And then Daniel Warren Johnson, who was absolutely a wrestling mark, comes out with Do a Powerbomb, and he weaves so much stuff in there. Yes, the fights are exhilarating. The finishers are great. The designs of all the wrestlers and the luchadors, they're absolutely fantastic. But it's the story that's the foundation of the series here. It's the relationship between the young girl that lost her mother and her new tag team partner who happens to have killed her mother, who might be her father, and all these weird moving parts. And we get these big reveals. Daniel Warren Johnson knows how to do a cliffhanger. I think a lot of people shit the bed in comic books these days when it comes to cliffhangers. This dude delivers an amazing cliffhanger on every single issue of this comic book. If you love wrestling, if you love comic books, if you love Daniel Warren Johnson, this comic book was tailor-made for you. I should call it 1B, really. I shouldn't call it number 2, but, you know, you got to do the list or whatever. I absolutely love this. I can't believe it's not number 1. I have my reasons for Batman, Superman, World's Finest from DC Comics, Mark Waid and Dan Mora being my number 1 comic book. I think it is equally as good as Do a Powerbomb. The art, in my opinion, is a little bit better for modern comic books. Dan Mora is absolutely an amazing comic book artist. There's a reason he's one of the best artists at DC Comics these days. But Marvel and DC are in really bad places right now. They don't know what to do with their characters anymore. Mark Waid and Dan Mora have given them the blueprint how to make your characters important again with Batman, Superman, World's Finest. This is the best comic book DC has produced in 3 or 4 years at this point. This thing is absolutely phenomenal from beginning to end. He introduces new characters. He introduces old characters. The one thing that Mark Waid never does during this series, he never fucks with the characters. He breaks them down to the essence of who they are, puts them in a situation, and they react how the characters should react. Superman is Superman, Batman is Batman, Robin is Robin, Supergirl is Supergirl, and the Doom Patrol are the Doom Patrol. They're all recognizable. These are the type of comic books that DC Comics fans are looking for. This is the blueprint to save DC Comics and their dwindling sales at this point. Superman, Son of Kal-El is not going to cut it. That is not going to lead DC Comics out of the crisis that they've made for themselves with their sales. Stuff like Batman, Superman, World's Finest is what's going to do it. True interpretations of the characters, getting the best artists that you can find, telling the most exciting stories with superheroics and staying true to the characters and moving them forward without destroying them in the process. Yes, everyone wants to do deconstruction these days. People are tired of it. That trope is so played out, it's not even funny. People want hope. They want to go back and see the best version of the heroes that they've loved their entire lives. That's why Batman Superman is the #1 comic book of 2022. It's equally as good as Duo Powerbomb, in my opinion. They're probably right on par with each other. But Batman Superman is so much more important because this needs to be the future of DC and Marvel Comics. Going back to the basics, understanding who the characters are, and telling wonderful, exciting stories with the best artists that you can find. There are very few instances of this going on at Marvel and DC. The best example is Batman, Superman, World's Finest. Amazing stuff. I never expected this out of Mark Waid. He absolutely sucked at Marvel Comics. He wasn't doing anything exciting. You put him back at DC Comics, it's clear he loves these characters, and he's doing everything that he can to tell the most exciting, impactful, best Batman, Superman stories that he can do, putting them together. Absolutely wonderful team up. It's basically a love letter to the DC Comics universe, which is what DC Comics needs to be providing to their customers these days because they've alienated far too many of them. That is my list, the very best comic books of 2022. This isn't the first time I've run down the best comic books of the year. In fact, I talked about the best comic books of 2021 last year. Definitely check this one out. See the list. If you're looking for some more great comic books, you're definitely going to recognize some of the names from this list over here. If you don't see the video, there's also a link in the video description.